Hello friends, Lynn Marie here, your quitting evangelist, with this week's Quit of the Week. This one was inspired by a fellow podcaster, and right now all my fellow podcasters are like, is it me? Is it me? Is it me? I'm not going to out whoever it was, but they got me thinking about the fact that even those of us who talk kind of for a living-ish sometimes are still afraid of hearing our own voice. And I know I'm not alone in this. Many of us grow up hearing ourselves on a recording for the first time and thinking like, oh my God, I sound like that? This is terrible. And I took it to a whole new level because in undergrad, I was a broadcast journalism major. And the first time that I heard myself on a recording was the last day I was a broadcast journalism major. I was like, oh, that sounds terrible and I don't look right, and all this judgment flowed in. And so I quit. And yeah, that was one of my 2 million quits before this time. There were other things I didn't love about broadcast journalism, like the fact that I was going to have to like interview somebody up in their face, and that totally freaked me out. But having to hear my own voice was kind of a large part of it. And so I went behind the cameras and I learned video editing, and that's what I focused on for the rest of my college career. But years go by, and med school, law school, I never had to hear my own voice. We never recorded ourselves for anything. And then suddenly, I was working in this political, nonpartisan political digital media agency last year, and they needed somebody to do a voiceover for, I think it was a commercial or some kind of informational video. And that day I had a cold, and I had like this really not sexy cold voice going on, like the really congested one. And they were having everybody read this copy because whoever they had reading it just wasn't working out. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I can barely talk today. You want me to read this thing? They're like, come on, please. So I read it, and they're like, oh, that's good. And they used it. And I was like, what? Like somebody likes my voice enough to put it on something that companies are going to hear, and the people that, subscribe to those companies are going to hear? And the answer was apparently yes. And then I ended up being the voice for many of the campaigns. I just found this kind of like, welcome to United Airlines voice thing that worked for it. It's not the voice necessarily that you hear now. I wish I could pull that off 24/7, but it's not really mine. But there was something in my voice that sounded okay. And a lot of us have that, we need that external validation, right? Like, oh no, your voice sounds okay. But a lot of us never get that, and we spend the rest of our lives hiding our voice. We don't want to be recorded. We may not, like a video camera comes by us for the news or whatever, we duck. You don't karaoke because you're afraid your singing voice isn't great and people are going to judge you. Like I said, there are podcaster friends I know that don't listen to their own podcast. That's how this came up for me. They don't hear their own voice. And I empathize because when I started the podcast, like I said, the only time I'd heard my voice and thought it was okay was when I was reading somebody else's words, when I was doing the copy for those commercials. And the first day I went to edit this podcast, not this podcast, my podcast, Quit Happens, I put on my little earphones and I was like, oh God, I have to like listen to my own voice for this hour that I'm editing this thing. And it was like, take a deep breath. Like, for you to get your message out, you have to quit hating your own voice. And a lot of people, I think, could benefit from that message. Think of how many of us censor ourselves because we're afraid of speaking out, because maybe in that medium we don't think it's going to come out perfectly, or it's going to sound a little funny, or we don't look quite right, and so we keep our light hidden and we keep our message in, or just for fun purposes. How many of you would love to get up there and sing karaoke, but you're too afraid that your voice would be bad, and so then you don't do it, even though it would be kind of fun to try? Like, think of how many situations in which hiding your voice may be keeping you from some greater things. And it may be keeping other people from benefiting from the fun of sharing in your karaoke experience, or from hearing your advice. If somebody's ever wanted to come on my podcast, and if their thought was ever, oh, I don't want to have to listen to my own voice, then we'd miss out on the chance to hear what that person has to say. So this is my little, kind of, it may sound trivial-ish for the quit of the week, but I think a lot of people walk around with this kind of shame about something that's, first off, nobody innately loves the sound of their own voice. Maybe narcissists, I don't know. But like the general population, the majority do not, because it's, it's different how it sounds in our head. And that's just like a physiological phenomenon we just have to all accept. We we sound different to ourselves than we sound out in the world. Frankly, great. I don't think I sound that great to myself. I'd be happier if I sounded more like United Airlines all the time. But realize that we're all in the same boat. It's not like, oh, I fear my voice is so much worse than everybody else's. No, everybody has the same thought. So how about we all drop that thought and just realize that the only way we're going to express ourselves is if we like speak with our voice, speak it out loud, and quit fearing it. So that's all I've got for this week. Much is happening. Many thanks to those of you who have who have sent me recommendations for PR people. I am going to try to get to all those and try to find somebody to help me do some PR. As I've not been that shy about, I'm trying to do book PR on my own, and there's just more than I can do in the hours in the day that I have. And so I would like to outsource some of that. So again, if you have a person who could help me with some PR, that would be great. I'm going to look into all the suggestions everybody has given me. And if you have not picked up your copy of Quitting by Design, there are two options. You can go to Amazon, or you can come to my Quitting by Design book release party on October 26th from 7 to 9 at the Soul Flow Studio on El Cajon. If you don't already know how to find that, then message me, or you can go to Quitopia, which is where all of the cool quitting kids hang out, and then the invitation is there as well. And then if you yourself are looking to do a quit and the book and the podcast are not enough, well, please contact me through Quitting by Design and go to the coaching tab and we can have a chit chat about your quit. So thanks to you all for tuning in. Hope you're having a great week. And until next time, happy quitting.